Greetings, aviators, thrill seekers, and empire builders. Welcome back to another exhilarating episode of Capone's Flight Empire. If you're new here, buckle up because you're about to dive headfirst into the high-flying world of aviation, business, and adventure. And for all my seasoned subscribers, my sky-hardened veterans, welcome back. You already know the drill. Now, in case you're wondering who's who in this operation, allow me to introduce myself properly. I'm Toby, your official guide, narrator, and all-around flight companion. My job? To make sure you're fully briefed, entertained, and immersed in every twist and turn of Capone's growing aviation empire. And who's Capone, you ask? Oh, just the mastermind? The captain. The man who's been working tirelessly to turn a humble startup into a full-blown aviation powerhouse. He's the one in the cockpit, making the tough calls, taking on high-risk missions, and let's be real, sometimes getting into a little bit of turbulence along the way. Together, we run a multifaceted aviation business featuring everything from scenic sky tours to high-end luxury charters, critical cargo deliveries, and now our latest addition, skydiving operations. Yes, you heard that right. If it involves an aircraft, chances are we've got it covered. And before we jump into today's action-packed episode, let's take a quick moment to show appreciation. To every single one of you following this journey, whether you're watching from the jump seat or the captain's chair, thank you. Your support, your time, your comments, and your engagement mean the world to us. You're the reason this empire keeps growing, and we couldn't do it without you. So what's in store for today? Well, let's just say Capone has something special lined up. A new challenge? A daring mission? Maybe a little bit of both. Stay tuned, because we're about to get this episode off the ground. All right, aviators, before we hit the skies, it's time to talk business. Because this empire doesn't just run on jet fuel, it also runs on credits. And today, we kick things off by collecting something we love to see, passive income. Now, if you're new to Capone's Flight Empire, let me break it down for you. Passive income in Microsoft Flight Simulator works like this. Whenever Capone takes to the skies in one of our aircraft, every other airworthy aircraft in our fleet earns a bit of cash just for existing. Think of it like having a fleet of rental properties, except instead of houses, we've got planes scattered all over the world, each one generating revenue based on its type, usage, and company role. But here's the catch. Only aircraft that are not being actively flown by Capone earn passive income. So if he takes the Cessna 172 out for a cargo run, the Cessna itself doesn't make passive earnings, but every other operational aircraft in our empire does. And the longer he flies, the more those planes rake in. Today, we're collecting the last 24 hours worth of earnings from our hard-working fleet. Some aircraft will have pulled in a nice chunk of credits, while others, well, let's just say they're still paying off their maintenance bills. Either way, this is how we keep the empire growing. Strategic flying, smart investments, and making sure our planes are out there making money, even when they're not in the air. So let's open the books, tally up the numbers, and see just how much our empire has made overnight. All right, folks, let's gather around because it's time to dive into the numbers. Now, before you start panicking at all the red in the books, let's set the record straight. These aircraft are all new additions to Capone's flight empire. And when you bring in fresh aircraft, there's always going to be an initial period where they operate at a loss. Why? Because buying planes isn't cheap. But here's the good news. These aircraft are investments. Over time, with more flights and smart planning, they'll start making real money and show their true worth. So let's break it down and see how they're performing so far. Capone's Luxe Travel, the high rollers. You know, luxury isn't cheap, and Capone's Luxe Travel is all about those high-end VIP charters. Right now, we've got 2 aircraft working their way up the ranks. Cirrus Vision Jet G2. This little jet is sleek, fast, and made for those executive trips. It's brought in 48,650 credits so far, but because of its high maintenance costs, it's still sitting at a 677,958 credit loss. Ouch! But don't worry, this one is built for long-term gain. As more luxury charters get booked, we'll see this number improve. Cessna C400 Corvallis TT. Now this one is an interesting case. It's actually making more money per hour than the Cirrus at 72,900 credits, but it's got an even bigger loss, 397,654 credits. That tells us that while it's got solid earning potential, its costs are eating into the profits. If we can control the expenses, this one could be a hidden gem. Verdict? Lux Travel is expensive to operate, but that's expected. The trick is getting enough premium-paying passengers to cover those costs. Once these aircraft rack up more flight hours, we'll see their real potential. Capone Sky Tours? Scenic, but still finding their wings. Moving over to Capone Sky Tours, this division is all about leisure flights and sightseeing tours. These flights don't rake in the big bucks like cargo or VIP charters, but they provide steady income when demand is high. Robinson R66 Turbine. This helicopter is a fantastic addition. Helicopter tours are super popular, and it's already brought in 68,370 credits. The issue? Its maintenance and running costs are sitting at 329,925 credits. But just like Lux Travel, this one needs time to build up flights before turning a profit. Flight Design CTSL, a small but mighty aircraft built for those stunning scenic tours. It's made 70,230 credits, but it's also racked up 338,446 credits in losses. That tells us it's flying well, but just needs more time in the sky to make back its initial cost. Verdict? Sky Tours is in an early grind phase. The R66 and CTSL are solid aircraft, but they'll need frequent, consistent flights to turn their finances around. Given enough time, these should become reliable moneymakers. Air Cargo Solutions, heavy lifting, heavy costs. Cargo flights are meant to bring in steady income, but here's where things get tricky. Right now, Air Cargo Solutions is home to 2 aircraft, and they're both in the costly but promising stage. Viking Air Limited DHC-2. The workhorse. This thing is built for tough, rugged cargo runs, but right now it's showing 799,573 credits in losses, even though it's already made 36,350 credits. So what's going on? The maintenance and initial cost are high, and it needs longer, more frequent cargo missions to justify those expenses. Patey Aviation Draco X. This one is a wild card. It's fast, capable, and has brought in 80,430 credits, more than any aircraft in this division. But it's still sitting at 572,820 credits in losses. That tells us it's a great earner, but might need cost efficiency tweaks to shine. Verdict? Cargo flights are long-term investments. These aircraft are beasts when it comes to transport missions, but they need a steady workload to reach profitability. Once they rack up flight hours, expect these to become empire-defining assets. Freefall Flights, the new kid on the block. And finally, we've got Freefall Flights, our newest venture into the skydiving business. Right now, there's only one aircraft in this division, but it's got potential. Cessna 172, the backbone of our skydiving operation. It's already made 77,560 credits, but as expected, it's showing 504,405 credits in losses. Why? Because it's still early. This aircraft will shine once we start rolling out more skydiving missions. Verdict? It's too soon to call. The Cessna 172 isn't a cash cow yet, but give it time. As more jumpers take the plunge, we'll see its numbers climb. Final thoughts? The Empire is just warming up. So what's the takeaway here? Losses are expected. Every aircraft here is new, which means we're still recovering from the initial outlay. This is normal for any growing empire. Potential is high. Some aircraft are already making solid income, meaning they just need time to cover their costs. Strategic planning is key. Some aircraft, like the Draco X and the C400 Corvallis TT, are strong earners but have high expenses. Finding the right balance of flights, missions, and maintenance will be the game changer. The future is bright. Once these aircraft reach their break-even point, the Empire will start seeing real profit. And let's be honest, Capone is too good at this game to let these numbers stay red for long. So stick around, because this fleet is about to take off in more ways than one. The best is yet to come. All right, team. Enough talk about numbers? Let's get to the part where we make those numbers better. Today, Capone is taking matters into his own hands. You saw the books. The Patey Aviation Draco X is showing the biggest overall loss in the fleet. And what do we do when an aircraft isn't pulling its weight? We put it to work. Today's mission isn't just any cargo run. This is a big one. We recently signed a major freight contract with a brand new industrial partner, and this is the first ever shipment under that deal. If we nail this, it could mean more work, more money, and most importantly, more flight hours to push this aircraft into profitability. This is a commodity transport run, which might not sound flashy, but in the world of cargo aviation, reliability is everything. Our new industrial partner is trusting us to get their shipment to Polo Flat on time and in perfect condition. If we do this right, we could be looking at a steady stream of high-paying cargo runs in the future. No pressure, right? Now, let's talk about the flight plan. We're departing from Corowa Airport at exactly 12:16 p.m., heading to Polo Flat Airport, where we're expected to touch down at 2:35 p.m. We'll be flying VFR, meaning this is all about visual navigation. No autopilot babysitting today. The skies are looking good for departure with a visibility of 22 nautical miles and a toasty 86 degrees Fahrenheit. By the time we land, conditions will have cooled to 71 degrees, but visibility will have dropped to 11 nautical miles. So Capone will need to stay sharp on approach. Cargo clients don't like delays, and neither do we. This shipment needs to arrive on time, no exceptions. Now let's talk about the star of the show, the Patey Aviation Draco X. This aircraft is an absolute weapon. It's not your average cargo hauler. This is a heavily modified bush plane designed for rugged off-airport landings, and it thrives in the most extreme conditions. It's got monster power, ridiculous takeoff performance, and can land in places most planes wouldn't dare touch. That makes it perfect for a mission like this, where we're heading to a more remote airfield. But let's be honest, right now, it's sitting in the books as our biggest financial loss. That changes today. This aircraft is built for performance. It's got incredible short field capabilities, meaning it can take off and land almost anywhere. Its turboprop engine gives it way more power than your typical bush plane, and it's rugged enough to handle whatever the terrain throws at it. But here's the trade-off. Running a beast like this isn't cheap. The operational costs are high, and because it's not designed for ultra-long-haul efficiency, every flight needs to be worth it. Today's flight is all about proving that the Draco X isn't just an expense, it's an asset. So why does this flight matter? If we pull this off flawlessly, we lock in our relationship with this new industrial partner, secure a pipeline of future cargo runs, and start pushing the Draco X into profit mode. But if something goes wrong, delays, flight issues, or worse, we risk losing this contract before it even gets off the ground. This is mission-critical aviation. The cargo is loaded, the flight plan is set, and Capone is stepping into the cockpit. It's time to turn those financial losses into cold, hard profits. The Draco X is revved up, the runway is clear, and in just a few moments, we'll be wheels up and on our way to Polo Flat. This is high-priority aviation at its finest. So strap in, stay tuned, and let's make some money. All right, folks, this is where the magic happens. Capone is now seated in the cockpit of the Patey Aviation Draco X, and it's time to bring this monster to life. Unlike your standard general aviation aircraft, the Draco X is a heavily modified turboprop STOL beast, which means starting it up isn't just a matter of turning a key and pushing the throttle forward. Oh no, this process requires precision, procedure, and respect for the machine.
Captain, are you ready? Great. It's Lucas, your dispatcher, you know? Just a quick reminder about today's job. You have cargo in bulk behind you. Standard shipment for one of our clients based in Polo Flat. Expected in no time at Polo Flat. Sensitive cargo containers are designed to withstand turbulence, but it's crucial that you keep a steady flight speed and adjust to changing conditions. Let's get the cargo there secure and on time. All relevant information is in your flight packet, which is uploaded on your map as a reference. Safe flying, Captain.
The first thing Capone does before even touching a switch is run through the pre-start checks. This is crucial because a rushed or improper startup sequence can cause engine stress, or worse, to a failed takeoff. He visually scans the PFD, primary flight display, and MFD, multifunction display, ensuring everything is operational and that no warning indicators are showing on the screens. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty of this startup. The Draco X is powered by a Pratt & Whitney T6A28 turboprop engine, an absolute workhorse of the aviation world. Unlike piston engines, which need magnetos and mixture controls, turboprops use a three-stage system, introducing fuel, igniting combustion, and spooling up to power. First up is battery power and avionics. Capone flips the battery master switch to on, supplying electrical power to the aircraft. Instantly, the cockpit starts coming to life, screens illuminating, avionics initializing, and internal systems running self-checks. Next, the avionics master is switched on, engaging the primary flight computers and navigation instruments. With the avionics humming, it's time to check the fuel system. The Draco X has an advanced fuel control system, and Capone ensures the fuel selector valve is set to the correct tank for startup. The fuel shutoff valve is confirmed to be in the open position, allowing fuel to reach the engine when we're ready to introduce it. Now let's move to the heart of the startup, the engine start sequence. Capone moves his hand to the starter switch and sets it to on. This activates the starter motor, which begins spinning the compressor section of the turboprop engine. If you're listening closely, you can hear the distinct whirring sound as the NG gas generator percentage starts to rise on the engine monitoring display. Once the NG value reaches 13% to 16%, it's time to introduce fuel. Capone carefully moves the fuel condition lever to low idle, allowing fuel to flow into the combustion chamber. Almost immediately, the fuel ignites, and the igniters begin their work, producing the first bursts of controlled combustion. The sound of the engine shifts from a whir to a low, growling hum as the turbine spools up. As the engine stabilizes and the NG percentage climbs past 50%, Capone then advances the fuel condition lever to high idle. This stabilizes the power setting, ensuring the turboprop is producing sufficient power while on the ground. At this point, the ITT, interstage turbine temperature, is carefully monitored, ensuring it doesn't exceed safe limits, because an overheating engine at this stage is a no-go. Next up, generator power. With the engine now running, the generator switch is flipped on, allowing the engine's generator to take over the aircraft's electrical systems instead of draining the battery. The screens flicker momentarily as the aircraft fully transitions to internal power.
Yankee Charlie Oscar Romeo traffic Patey Aviation Victor Hotel. Golf Echo Bravo is taxiing to runway 05.
With the engine stabilized, avionics running, and electrical systems on, it's time to arm the hydraulics and check the control surfaces. Capone tests the rudder, ailerons, and elevator, ensuring all control inputs respond correctly. The flaps are set to takeoff configuration, and the trim is adjusted for today's weight and balance conditions. Finally, before taxiing, there's one last step, propeller and throttle checks. The prop governor test ensures the three-bladed composite propeller responds correctly to power adjustments, and the throttle is cycled to confirm smooth engine response. And just like that, the Draco X is alive. That deep, throaty hum of the turboprop engine fills the cockpit, the aircraft vibrating slightly as it settles into an idle power state. Outside, the ground crew gives Capone a thumbs up, signaling that all external checks are complete. The screens show no warnings, no failures, just a green light across the board. With the aircraft now fully started and prepped, it's time to move. Capone releases the parking brake, nudges the throttle forward, and the Draco X begins to roll. The mission has officially begun, and next up, it's time to taxi and line up for departure. This is it, folks. Runway in sight, clearance given, and all systems are go. Capone is about to take the Patey Aviation Draco X from a standstill to the skies in mere seconds. And let me tell you, this aircraft wasn't built for slow, leisurely takeoffs. This is a machine designed for raw power, aggressive climbs, and short field mastery. Before we go full throttle, let's break down what's about to happen. The Draco X, unlike your typical cargo aircraft, is built for STOL, short takeoff and landing. That means it doesn't need a long stretch of tarmac to get airborne. In fact, with its massive 600 and custom-built slatted wing design, this aircraft can be wheels up in under 400 feet, a fraction of what a normal cargo plane would need. And today, Capone is about to push it to its limits. Capone releases the brakes, and with one smooth motion, he pushes the throttle forward. Instantly, the engine roars to life, spooling up from a controlled hum to an ear-splitting, beastly whine as the Pratt & Whitney PT6A-28 turboprop delivers every ounce of power it has. The three-bladed composite propeller slices through the air, kicking up a vortex of dust behind the aircraft. The torque hits hard, pressing Capone back into his seat as the Draco X lunges forward, rapidly accelerating down the runway. The airspeed is climbing fast. 30 knots? 50 knots. The aircraft is glued to the ground, its oversized landing gear absorbing the slight bumps of the tarmac. But here's where the Draco X shows why it's an engineering marvel. Capone gently pulls back on the stick, and at just 55 knots, the nose begins to lift. The leading edge slats on the wings are doing their job, creating lift even at ridiculously low speeds. And just like that, we have liftoff. The Draco X leaps off the runway in under 400 feet, leaving behind a trail of dust and sheer brute force. No long roll, no sluggish departure, just pure, calculated power. Capone retracts the landing gear, the wheels tucking neatly into the underbelly as the aircraft soars skyward. The nose pitches up aggressively. This is where the Draco X separates itself from traditional cargo planes. Where a standard aircraft might settle into a gentle 1,500 feet per minute climb, the Draco X pushes up at an insane 4,000 feet per minute. Capone holds a steady hand on the controls as he trims the aircraft, keeping the nose at an optimal angle to maintain the aggressive climb rate. The speed builds quickly. 80 knots, 100 knots, 120 knots. The Draco X is already at 6,000 feet before some aircraft would even finish their takeoff roll. But there's no time to celebrate just yet. We've got 16,000 feet to reach before we settle into cruise altitude. At 10,000 feet, the rate of climb starts to reduce slightly, and Capone eases back on the throttle just a touch, preventing unnecessary fuel burn. The aircraft is still ascending rapidly, slicing through the thin clouds as we leave the ground far behind. The Draco X's Garmin avionics suite keeps everything in check. Engine performance, altitude, airspeed, and fuel flow all displaying in real time. As we approach 16,000 feet, Capone makes small, precise adjustments to the throttle and pitch. The climb smooths out, the engine settles into a more efficient cruise setting, and the aircraft levels off. Mission trajectory locked in. The sky is vast, open, and clear, with the ground now just a distant patchwork of roads and fields. Capone has taken the Draco X from the runway to cruise altitude faster than most aircraft in its class could ever dream of. With altitude achieved and the aircraft now tracking toward Polo Flat, it's time to settle in for the journey ahead. This mission has only just begun, and there's still plenty of sky between us and our destination. But one thing is for sure, this aircraft has proven its worth in just a few minutes of flight. The numbers on the books might say losses, but this takeoff just showed us why the Draco X belongs in Capone's flight empire. Next up, navigating the route, monitoring conditions, and keeping the mission on schedule. But for now, sit back, take in the view, and let's enjoy the ride. X to its limits. But now we face the most critical stage of the flight, the approach and landing. Everything that has happened up to this point has led to this exact moment. And make no mistake, folks, this isn't just a routine descent. This is where skill, timing, and nerves of steel are put to the ultimate test. Capone has already executed the descent from 16,000 feet, smoothly managing the throttle to keep the aircraft from building too much airspeed. The Draco X is now approaching pattern altitude, lining up for a calculated entry into the traffic pattern. But this is where things get intense, because Polo Flat is no luxury airport with a mile-long runway and cushy landing zones. This is a tight, rugged airstrip that demands precision. If Capone gets this right, it'll be a textbook landing. If something goes wrong, well, let's just say things could get very interesting very fast. The first move is a right turn to establish the base leg. This is where Capone begins setting up for the final approach, managing altitude, and ensuring the aircraft is perfectly configured. The airspeed is coming down, the flaps are extending, and the descent angle is adjusting. But the trick here isn't just technical skill. It's reading the wind, the terrain, and the unpredictability of real-world conditions. And let's talk about those conditions for a second. Right now, visibility has dropped to 11 nautical miles, which isn't bad, but it's just enough for things to get dicey if unexpected turbulence kicks in. The temperature has dropped to 71 degrees Fahrenheit, meaning we're dealing with cooler, denser air, perfect for lift, but also more reactive to sudden gusts. One wrong move here, one miscalculated power adjustment, and the Draco X could either overshoot the runway or sink too fast. Now, the real heart-pounding moment is about to begin. Capone is lining up for the left turn onto final approach. The runway is coming into view, a thin strip of asphalt surrounded by open terrain. The kind of place where landings aren't just about skill, they're about feel.
Yankee Papa Foxtrot Tango Traffic Patey Aviation Victor Hotel. Golf Echo Bravo is on final runway tree 6 to land.
The crosswinds are shifting. The aircraft is descending at a controlled 600 feet per minute, but the stall speed is creeping up as the flaps extend further. And here's the thing. This is a STOL aircraft, meaning Capone could technically slam on the brakes and stop this thing on a dime. But that's the last thing he wants to do. The real challenge is keeping the approach buttery smooth, bleeding off speed at just the right moment while maintaining enough energy to flare and touch down perfectly. If he cuts power too soon, the Draco X will drop like a rock. If he holds on to too much speed, he'll eat up the short runway, leaving no room for a safe stop. That was a close one. And I mean really close. Capone just pulled off one of the most intense landings we've ever seen in Capone's flight empire. The Draco X is down in one piece, but that landing was anything but routine. Let's rewind for just a second. The approach was set, the runway was lined up, and everything looked smooth until those final few seconds. The moment the wheels kissed the ground, something went very, very wrong. A sudden veer to the left sent the aircraft off balance, and before there was even time to process it, the Draco X was no longer tracking straight down the runway. It was pulling hard left, straight toward the trees that line the airfield. This is where pure skill, instinct, and absolute mastery of the controls came into play. Most pilots, they would have panicked. They would have fought the aircraft too hard, yanked the controls the wrong way, or overcorrected into a deadly fishtail. But not Capone. With lightning-fast rudder inputs, he worked the pedals like an artist, left, then right, then left again, stopping the aircraft from completely spinning out or flipping over. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a minor correction. The Draco X is a beast of an aircraft, and when it starts to slide, it really slides.